Bismillahir-Rahman-Nir-Rahim. The status of Hadeeth in Islam. Through the Quranic and historical perspective.
How were Ahadith compiled?
How did these Ahadith reach us? What is their status in Deen? What is the mutual relationship of the Quran and
Ahadith.
Ghulam Ahmad Parwez.
Muhammad Aslam Jairajpuri.
4. Tafsir. Explanation
Of the Quranic verses.
Through Ahadith. The greatest need for Ahadith is said to be that without these the correct meaning of the Quran cannot be understood.
The logic given for this seems apparently so solid that everyone becomes convinced.
It is said, can there be any better explanation for any verse of the Quran from anyone other than the interpretation given by Rasulullah? There is no doubt there cannot be a better interpretation from anyone else. But the question is, are the interpretations of verses mentioned in Ahadith in reality those of the Messenger? You cannot answer this question. Nor can you agree with the reply that this interpretation cannot be given by Rasulullah. Till you see for yourself what kind of tafsir has been reported in Ahadith. For this purpose we will quote some tafsir from the books of Ahadith considered most authentic. After this you can assess for yourself whether it can in any way be said that this tafsir can be attributed to Rasulullah. In a verse of Surah Ahzab it is stated, O you who believe, do not be like those who vexed and insulted Moses. So Allah cleared him of what they uttered. 33.
69. 4.1 Hazrat Musa and Bani Israel.
The details of the ways in which Bani Israel used to harass Moses are referred to in different places in the Quran. The great determination and courage with which Moses brought him out of the slavery and tyranny of Pharaoh and into the free environment of the Sinai Valley, was such an event the realization of which should have made them grateful to Moses for the rest of their lives. But contrary to this, their reaction was that they used to blatantly tell Moses. They said, "We have had nothing but
trouble both before and after you came."
7. 129. Its explanation is given in the Torah that when Bani Israel saw the Egyptians chasing them, they said to Moses, "Was there no place for our graves in Egypt that
you brought us to this wilderness to get us killed?
Why did you do this to us that you brought us out of Egypt? Is this not the same thing that we had said to you in Egypt to keep your hands off us so that we could serve the Egyptians? It was far better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in this wilderness." Exodus chapter 14. 10-12. They used to get food like man and salva in the plains of the Sinai. They even became annoyed at this and said to Moses, "O Moses, we cannot endure one kind of food always." 2.
61.
It is noted in the Torah. And the whole tribe of Bani Israel became upset with Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And Bani Israel said, "We wish that when we used to eat cooked meat and plenty of bread to our heart's content on the soil of Egypt, that we had died through the hands of God." Exodus chapter 16. 11-13. When they met with just a little scarcity of water they became upset and started complaining.
Why did you bring us out of Egypt, just to kill us and our boys and our animals of thirst?
Exodus chapter 7. 3-1.
While passing through a valley they saw the
people there worshipping an idol and insisted that Moses get them such an idol too.
7. 138. When Moses left for
Mount Tur for a few days they started worshipping a calf. 20. 86. On entering a habitation they were instructed to maintain certain manners but they intentionally and practically went against this. 2. 58-59. Moses urged them to have Iman in Allah and they replied, "We will not accept what you say until we see Allah with our own eyes." 2. 55. Allah commanded them to sacrifice a cow. The details of the kinds of excuses they made are given in Surah Baqarah. C2:67. Moses told them that Allah has ordained this sacred land to you, rise and occupy it. In response to this they said that until its inhabitants get out of it we are not ready to take any step to it. 5:24. You and your God should go and battle with these people. And when in this way these people leave then we will come.
We will sit here waiting. This was the behavior of this nation which made Moses eventually say to them,
O my people, why do you vex and insult me, though you know that I am the messenger of Allah sent to you?
61:5.
And he asked Allah. He said, O my sustainer, I have power only over myself and my brother.
So separate us from this rebellious people.
5:25. Referring to these events about Bani Israel, the Quran said to the Jamaat of Mu'mineen,
Believers,
do not start behaving like the Bani Israel. This will make no difference to the Messenger of Allah. The laws of Allah give protection from all such matters and enable him to reach the highest level of eminence. But that nation which instead of obeying their messenger exasperates him in this way, is destroyed. 4.1.1 Tafsir of Bukhari.
reflect carefully on the explanations given by the Quran and then in the light of this think how the meaning of the verse under consideration becomes clear.
61.5. Contrary to this, see what the tafsir given in Hadeeth is for the meaning of this same verse.
It is noted in Bukhari.
Abu Huraira relates a narrative attributing it to Rasulullah, that Rasulullah said Bani Israel used to bathe naked and would look at one another. And Moses would bathe alone.
Bani Israel said, By Allah, what is preventing Moses from bathing together with us other than that he is suffering from some skin disease,
affecting the private parts. One day by chance Moses went to take a bath and placed his clothes on a stone. The stone took his clothes and ran away, and Moses ran after it shouting, O stone, give me back my clothes.
O stone, give me back my clothes. Till such a time that Bani Israel looked towards Moses and said, By Allah, Moses has no disease.
And the stone halted. Moses retrieved his clothes and started hitting the stone. Abu Huraira said that, by Allah, to this day that stone bears 6 or 7 marks from the beating by Moses. Read this tafsir repeatedly and reflect whether this could be the explanation given by Rasulullah. And further see in Tirmizi that there is a narrative from Hazrat Ibn Abbas that Rasulullah said that the angel Gabriel used to say that when Pharaoh began to drown and wanted to accept Iman, I wish that at that moment, O Muhammad, you had seen how I was taking mud from the sea and was forcing it into Pharaoh's mouth so that he does not manage to recite the kalma tayyaba, and in that way receive Allah's rahmat, mercy. 4.2 Pharaoh accepts Iman. Firstly consider, is it the task of the angel Gabriel that he should stuff with mud the mouths of the people who wish to have Iman in Allah, lest they have Iman and Allah may have rahmat, mercy, on them? And also consider this, the Quran states regarding the angels that they do nothing at their own. They only act as directed by Allah. 16:50. It is obvious from this that this act of the angel Gabriel, that he was forcing mud into Pharaoh's mouth to stop him from reciting the kalma, was by the command of Allah. But it is already clearly stated in the Quran that Pharaoh had declared his Iman in Allah. He, Pharaoh, declared that there is no Allah except him who Bani Israel believe in and I am among Muslims. 10:90. So according to this narrative, Allah's wish was that Pharaoh should not accept Iman, and to fulfill this wish, he commanded Gabriel to stuff Pharaoh's mouth with mud, but despite this Pharaoh accepted Iman and thus, Allah forbid, the plan of Allah failed. Can you imagine that this tafsir could be the saying of Rasulullah? 4.3 Tafsir of Huwal Awalo wal Akhiro.
the first and the last.
In the Quran it is noted about Allah.
He is the first and the last.
57. 3. The Quran says about Allah that He is beyond the constraints of time and space. This is such a clear and evident attribute for the understanding of which there is no difficulty. He is the first, He is the last.
But in Jama' Tirmizi there is a long narrative noted from Hazrat Abu Huraira, which is summarized below.
Rasulullah stated the distance from the earth to the heavens is 500 years.
Then from each heaven to the next heaven is also the same distance.
And there are 7 heavens. In the same way, there is another earth below this earth at a distance of 500 years, and there are also 7 earths, and each is distant from the other by this same distance. I swear by Allah, in whose hands is the life of Muhammad, that if any of you extends a rope down to the very last earth, it will fall directly on top of Allah. And then Rasulullah said, Allah is the first and the last. Look at this verse and then reflect on this tafsir. Can this tafsir in any way whatsoever be the saying of Rasulullah? In this same Jama' Tirmizi, there is a narrative attributed to Hazrat Abbas in which it is stated, Rasulullah said that the distance from one heaven to another is 71 or 72 or 73 years, and there are 7 heavens and each one is distant from the other by the same distance.
On top of the 7th heaven there is an ocean whose depth is the same distance. On top of the ocean there are 7 mountain
male goats, and the distance between their hooves and knees is the same distance. On the backs of these goats is Arsh, Allah's throne, which is as thick as the distances mentioned earlier. 4.3.1 The contradiction.
First see that in the narration attributed to Abu Huraira.
It has been said that the distance between 2 heavens is 500 years. And then in this same Jama' Tirmizi it has been quoted that the Messenger said that the distance from one heaven to another is 71, 72, or 73 years. What a great contradiction this is. 4.4 Tafsir of Azhuhu Ayla al-Ma'in. Thrown on water. This saying that there is an ocean over the 7th heaven, and in this ocean there are 7 mountain male
goats on the backs of which is Allah's arsh, is possibly the tafsir of the following verse in which it is stated,
and his throne was over the waters.
11:7.
This verse points to a great reality. It is stated in the Quran, we made from water every living thing. 21:30. In other words, life emerged from water, and its survival depends on water, without which there is no possibility of life. The fundamental source of life is water, and as per verse 11:7, the central controlling authority over water is Allah.
In other words, Allah has sovereignty and control over the origin and sustenance of life.
This is that reality which the Quran has stated. And the above narrative is the tafsir of this reality about which it is stated that this was Rasulullah's explanation of it. Now decide for yourself whether this tafsir can in any way be attributed to Rasulullah. 4.5 Allama Adam al-Azmaran taught attributes to Adam. In Surah Baqarah regarding the tale of Adam, it is stated, and he taught Adam the names of all things. 2:31. It is plain that Adam is used metaphorically to represent the whole of mankind. Allah has endowed man with the potential to acquire knowledge of the matters relating to nature. And it is due to this that the angels, forces of nature, bow to man and the universe is in service to man. Allah has also endowed man with responsibility and the freedom to choose. For choice and responsibility, knowledge is essential. Without knowledge, the question of freedom to choose does not arise, i.e., informed choice is not possible. 4.5.1 Tafsir of Bukhari. Now look at what Bukhari, in Kitab ut Tafsir, has quoted regarding the tafsir of this verse.
Hazrat Uns bin Malik relates a narrative
attributed to Rasulullah, that on the Day of Judgment all the Muslims will come together and consult amongst each other, that on this day let us make a Shafi, intercessor.
And then they will go to Hazrat Adam and will say that you are the father of everyone. Allah has commanded the angels to bow before you and has taught you all the names.
Intercede on our behalf so that this day we gain relief from the pain of this place. He will reply that this day I am not capable of this and will recall his sin. He had eaten the fruit of the tree against orders. And will feel shame in front of Allah and will tell him to go to Noah, whom Allah had made the first messenger and sent him to earth. All the people will come to him. He will say that this day I am not capable of this, and remembering his sin will feel shame, and will say, go to Abraham Khalilullah, friend of Allah. The whole lot of them will then come to him and he too will say the same and tell him to go to Moses. Allah spoke to him and bestowed the Torah on him. They will come to him and he too will say that this day I cannot be an intercessor for you, and will feel ashamed on remembering his sin.
He will tell him to go to Jesus.
He is the messenger of Allah and word of Allah and spirit of Allah. When they come to him he will say the same and will tell him to go to Muhammad, whose all past and future sins have been forgiven by Allah. They will then come to me,
Rasulullah,
and I will take them to Allah for forgiveness and will request an audience with Allah, and I will receive permission for this. The moment I see my Rabb, Sustainer,
I will fall down in prostration, and whatever words Allah puts into my heart I will say.
And then from Allah it will be said, O Muhammad, raise your head and ask so that it can be bestowed, and speak, what you say will be heard, and ask for intercession, this will be accepted. At that moment, I will raise my head, and just as Allah gave me instruction, in the same way I will praise him. Then I will do shafa'at, intercession.
And at that time a group will be pardoned.
i.e.,
Muhajirin and Ansar, very righteous people, saints and martyrs.
And I will have them sent to paradise. Then I will return to Allah again, and seeing him, prostrate. Sajda.
Myself, and will intercede.
This time another group will again be pardoned.
This same way a third and a fourth time I will intercede. And then I will say to Allah that no one is left, except those who have been stopped by the Quran and for whom there is a command to remain in hell forever, i.e., regarding whom there is a verse in the Quran. Kalajuna fiya abada. They will stay therein forever. E.g. 4. 169. Firstly, see that in this tafsir, which is attributed to Rasulullah, there is not a word mentioned about educating Adam. 2.
31. And then reflect that in it is written that various messengers of Allah will be so ashamed of their sins that they do not have the courage to go in front of Allah.
Is it possible that such sayings could be those of Rasulullah?
4.6 Your wives are your tilth.
In Surah Baqarah it is stated, your
wives are as a tilth unto you, so approach your tilth when or how you will.
2. 223. It is clear that the aim of approaching your wives is for the purpose of procreation.
For this, in the same way that a farmer plants his crops at appropriate times, you should also sow your seeds at times you deem fit.
In its tafsir,
in Bukhari's al-Tafsir, there is the following hadith. Nafa Mawla ibn Umar narrates that Abdullah ibn Umar would not speak to anyone while reciting the Quran. One day I went to him, while he was reciting the Quran. While reciting Surah Baqarah, he reached this verse, Nisa o kum, and he asked me if I knew when this verse was revealed.
I said I do not know.
He explained the reason for its revelation and then continued reading. Abdul Samad says that this narrative has also reached us from Ibn Umar because some men used to sodomize women. This verse was revealed regarding them. A narrative attributed to Jabir says that Jews used to say that a person who sodomizes his woman will get cock-eyed children. At that time this verse was revealed, to declare that this saying was wrong. You can have sex with women in any manner you wish. This is the Hadeeth of Bukhari. Allama Badr ud Din Aini and Hafiz ibn Hajar Asqalani have written the explanations of Bukhari. Whatever they have written regarding the explanation of this Hadeeth you can see for yourself. 4.6.1 Explanation of this Hadeeth. Allama Aini first copied this Hadeeth of Bukhari as Ishaq told us that Nazar bin Jamil gave us the news that Ibn A'an was told by Nafi that when Ibn Umar used to read the Quran, he would not speak till he was finished. One day I went with a copy of the Quran and sat by him and he read Surah Baqarah till he reached a certain point and asked, "Do you even know in what context this verse was revealed?" When I replied no, he informed me that it was revealed because of such and such a reason, and then started reading again. And a narrative from Abdul Samad says that my father told me that he was told by Ayub Sakhtiani, who narrated it from Nafi, who quoted Ibn Umar that the tafsir of Fa'atu Hasakum Initiatum is copulate with your wife. This was also narrated by Muhammad bin Yahya ibn Sa'id from his father, who heard it from Ubaydullah, who heard it from Nafi, who heard it from Ibn Umar. After this Allama Aini writes, here in the original book, Bukhari, a blank space has been left, i.e.
after the word, fi.
Hamidi has said in Aj Jama Bainas Sahiyan, fi Qablaha, i.e. in the vagina of your wife. However, this is not correct. This narrative has been reported by Ibn Jarrah in his tafsir, copied from Abu Kalabat Yorikashi, who in turn copied it from Abdus Samad bin Abdul Waris, who in turn said that his father had narrated it to him and there he had described it with the words, Ya tiha fil dubba. Copulate with your wife in dubba.
Backside. This then is the interpretation,
or tafsir,
of
Allama Aini. Now let us look at the Sharah. Explanation of Hafiz ibn Hajar Asqalani. 4.6.2 Copulation in dubba. Backside. Ibn al-Arabi has copied in Siraj al-Murid that Bukhari has copied this Hadeeth in his tafsir and has noted, Ya tiha fi, and left a blank space.
And this issue is well known.
On this issue Muhammad bin Shaban has written a whole book while Muhammad bin Sarnoon has written a part about it and has proved that Ibn Umar's Hadeeth is about copulation with women in dubba. Masri has said that there is a difference of opinion among the scholars. Those who think it is halal, permitted, have taken support from this verse, and those who consider it haram,
disallowed, have dissociated themselves by saying this verse was revealed because of what is noted in a Hadeeth of Jabir, i.e. to counter Jews as reported in another Hadeeth. They have said that when a general command is given on a specific matter, then according to some scholars it is applicable to the same. Though according to most scholars the common word ha is used generally and not for any particular reason. Therefore this principle requires that this verse provides legitimacy to this act. But there are many ahadith available which also prohibit it. Therefore those ahadith will be attributed for the common command of the verse. Although there are differences among the scholars about attributing a single news to a verse regarding a general command, and a big group of imams of ahadith from among them have gone in this direction. For example, no Hadeeth of Imam Bukhari, Az Zali, Bezar, Nasai and Abu Ali Neshapuri etc. can be proven in this regard.
From this you have seen that according to Hafiz ibn Hajar, there is a difference of opinion on this issue. Whether copulation is allowed in dubba. Some call it haram, while others consider it allowed. Let us now look at the further explanation of Allama Aini.
He writes,
under next heading, 4.7 The Maslak doctrine of Imam Malik. In his book Ahkam al-Quran, Commands of the Quran, Ibn al-Arabi writes that he has been told by a very large group that all these sayings have been compiled by Ibn Shaban in his book Jam' an-Naswan,
and its legitimacy has been attributed to a large party of the Sahaba and their followers.
He has also attributed a great many narratives to Imam Malik. In his book, Ahkam al-Quran, Abu Bakr al-Jassiz has said that Imam Malik's legitimacy is very well known. And the colleagues of Imam Malik deny it because it is considered morally wrong and unacceptable, but this saying of Imam Malik is so well known that denial of it by people cannot erase it.
Muhammad bin Sa'd has quoted from Abu
Sulaiman Jozjani that he was once in the company of Imam Malik. When he was asked about copulating in Dubba, he slapped his head and said that he had just returned from taking a bath after such an act.
In the same way, Ibn al-Qasim has quoted that Imam Malik used to say that I have not seen any man whom I could follow in matters related to deen and who would doubt its being halal, i.e.
copulating in the dubba of a woman. After this Imam Malik recited this verse. 223. Imam Malik said, what could be clearer than this, and I have not the slightest doubt about it. As far as Imam Shafi's religion is concerned. In this regard Imam Tahadi said that we heard it from Muhammad bin al-Hukam. And that he has heard Imam Shafi saying that he used to declare that there is no hadith from Rasulullah which declares it halal or haram, and the supposition is that it is halal. This proves that Imam Malik strongly believed in its legitimacy and himself regularly acted on it. Imam Shafi's view was that it is most likely to be halal. In this regard Hafiz ibn Hajar has copied a discussion of Imam Shafi's with a pupil of Imam Azam called Imam Ahmad. He writes, Imam Hakim in Munaqib-e Shafi has copied
from Ibn al-Hukam that an open debate regarding this issue took place between Imam Shafi and Imam Muhammad ibn al-Hasan, which is very well known.
Ibn al-Hasan argued against Imam Shafi, that tilth can only be a vagina. Imam Shafi replied, that means that apart from the vagina, the rest is all haram. Imam Hasan agreed, yes, other than the vagina the rest is haram.
On this Imam Shafi inquired, tell me, if a man has sex between the thighs of his wife or between her elbows, will it be a tilth?
Imam Hasan replied, no, these places will not be counted as tilth. Imam Shafi inquired, will it be haram then? Imam Hasan said, no. Imam Shafi replied, then if you yourself are not convinced of a matter, how do you use it in your argument? Imam Hakim said that probably Imam Shafi was convinced previously of its being halal, because in his later quoted sayings he considers it haram.
You have seen the verse of the Quran.
And you have read the tafsir of this verse which is reported in Bukhari, and you have also viewed whatever explanation the Imams have given of this hadith.
After this you can decide for yourself whether this tafsir can be attributed to Rasulullah and whether the Quran can be understood in the light of such types of ahadith.
4.8 Do not declare halal as haram. In Surah Maida it is stated, O you who believe, make not unlawful, haram, the good things which Allah has made lawful, halal, for you. 5:87. 4.8.1 Bukhari's Tafsir. The matter is clear that in deen you should not imprison yourself in self-created chains. Obedience is only necessary within those limits which have been defined by Allah. Now let us look at that tafsir of this verse which has been noted in Kitab al-Tafsir of Bukhari. Abdullah bin Mas'ud narrates that we were taking part in jihad with Rasulullah and we did not have women with us. And the separation from women was intolerable because of heat and energy. So we asked whether we should be castrated. Rasulullah forbade this and then gave permission for us to enter into an agreement with a woman if she was agreeable and have nikah for a few days or more,
so that you do not get castrated,
and as a result you do not get under a bad spell. And then this verse was recited. 4.9 Permission for muta.
Through this hadith, permission for muta also ended up being given.
In Bukhari, in Kitab an-Nikah, there is a hadith. Salma bin Akua says that we were part of an army that had gone to Hunain. Rasulullah came to us and stated that you are given permission for muta.
You can do muta.
In another narrative, Salma bin Akua also narrates from Rasulullah that he said that when a man and a woman are in agreement, they are allowed to enjoy lovemaking up to 3 nights.
Then if they wish to stay longer or wish to reduce it, they are free to do so.
4.9.1 Details of muta. For further detail, see also a narrative of Sahih Muslim. It is written,
there is a narrative of Sabrayani which says that when Rasulullah gave permission for muta, I and another man went together to a woman of Bani Amer tribe and expressed our desire.
She questioned us about her remuneration.
I said I will give my shawl, and my companion said he also will give his shawl.
His shawl was better than mine, but I was younger compared to him. When the woman looked at his shawl, she was inclined to him, and when she looked at me, she became attracted to me. Finally she said that you and your shawl are good enough for me.
Therefore I remained with her for 3 days. Now decide for yourself whether these narratives of tafsir could in any way whatsoever be attributed to Rasulullah.
It is stated in Surah Maida that on the day of judgment Allah will address Jesus, did you say to your ummah that they should make you and your mother as gods? In reply, Jesus will say, Ma'azallah.
May Allah forbid.
How could I say such a thing? I have always directed them to follow my Rab and their Rab.
Sustainer. As the God.
Never said I to them aught except what you did
command me to say, to wit, follow Allah, my sustainer and your sustainer.
And I was a witness over them while I dwelt among them. When you did take me up, when I died, you were the watcher over them, and you are a witness to all things.
5.
117. How clear this is. But in the tafsir of this verse, the hadith that Bukhari has noted in Kitab ut-Tafsir is given below. Ibn Abbas narrates that Rasulullah read this sermon that, O people, you will be resurrected before Allah with bare bodies, barefoot and uncircumcised. And then the messenger recited this verse. Even as we produced the first creation, so shall we produce a new one. A promise we have undertaken.
Truly shall we fulfill it.
21. 104. And then Rasulullah said that first of all, Abraham will be clothed, and be aware that a few people of my ummah will be brought forward and the angels will take them towards hell.
At that time I will say, O Allah,
they are my Sahaba, companions. A voice will be heard from Allah, saying, you do not know what they did after you. At that time I too like Jesus will say, Kuntu alayhim shahidan.
5.
117. Begin a call from Allah will say, these people became apostates right after your Muhammad's death. All this is being said about the Sahaba. Allah
forbid.
Can you even imagine that Rasulullah would have said this?
4.10 The character of Yusuf. Joseph.
In Surah Yusuf it is noted that when the king heard of the interpretation of his dream by Yusuf, he became convinced of Yusuf's knowledge and vision and asked for Yusuf to be brought before him, who would not wish to get out of jail, and then in such circumstances when the prisoner is innocent and the king calls him to confer status and blessings on him. In ordinary circumstances any man would leap at such an invitation. But the character of a Nabi, messenger of Allah, is far greater than this.
In reply to this invitation, Yusuf told Kasad,
the bearer of the king's message. I do not wish to leave the prison based on this royal mercy. Go to your king and ask him whether he thoroughly investigated the case in which I was prosecuted and punished, and what was its reality and truth.
If after investigation of this case the king reaches this conclusion that I was innocent, only then will I leave the prison.
So the king said,
Bring him unto me.
But when the messenger came to him, Joseph
said, Go back to your lord, and ask him, What is the state of mind of the ladies who cut their hands? For my sustainer is certainly well aware of their snare.
12:50. 4.10.1 Bukhari's narrative.
Hadeeth.
This is the elevated position of a Nabi, messenger of Allah. But the tafsir of this in Bukhari is as follows. Rasulullah said that if I had been in prison for years like Yusuf, I would have definitely accepted the order for release. This narrative is crying out that it is invented by a Jew so as to prove the higher character of their
Nabi,
Yusuf, compared to Rasulullah. But this
narrative has been attributed to Rasulullah. There are abundant such narratives which can be quoted from the Sahih Sitta, but we think that you will have gauged from these examples what types of narratives are written in our books of Ahadith.
But our orthodox section of the Ummah insists that these should be recognized and accepted as the authentic Ahadith from Rasulullah. 4.11 Eyes are lowered in shame and cannot be raised. To conclude this discussion, a narrative is
presented from Jama Tirmizi. Just think whether after seeing this narrative, one can raise one's eyes.
In Surah Hajr the Quran states, To us are known those of you who hasten forward, and those who lag behind. Assuredly it is your sustainer who will gather them together. For he is perfect in wisdom and knowledge. 15:24-25. The meaning of this verse is clear that on the day of judgment Allah will collect all those who lived before, and those who are coming after them. There are two other verses with this same meaning.
Say,
Yes, those of old and those of later times, all will certainly be gathered together for the meeting appointed for a day well known. 56:49-50.
Now listen to what the tafsir of these verses from Surah Hajr is according to the narratives. Jama Tirmizi has a narrative from Hazrat Ibn Abbas which states, An extremely beautiful woman used to come to the mosque to offer prayers behind
Imamate. Rasulullah.
Some of the Sahaba would move to the front rows so that they do not see her, while others would occupy the back rows and while going down in ruku would peep at her through the space under their arms. Because of this, Allah revealed this verse that we know those among you who are in front and those of you who are behind. We do not feel there is any need for comment on this. We will only say that these types of narrative are themselves crying out that they can never be true. These were invented by enemies of Islam and were attributed to Rasulullah and his companions. But the orthodox section of our Ummah insists that not only are these to be believed as true, but it must also be accepted that these used to be revealed to Rasulullah through the angel Gabriel. The belief of these people is that Gabriel used to come with both the Quran and the Sunnah, and Rasulullah used to be taught the Sunnah like the Quran.